Hey guys, today I want to answer a question I get a lot about working with private clients who may have found me through my website. So there's a few pieces to this. We'll unpack some of them. I might save the rest of the questions for a different video. But first of all, let me just say that for the most part, most of my practice, especially my entire practice, private practice in New York City, grew by word of mouth. That was partly because I didn't have another marketing strategy when I lived in New York, and also it worked. My clients' friends were recommending them. And also, it certainly felt safer to go to the home or the office of someone I hadn't personally met before when I knew that they had a relationship with somebody that I knew and trusted. And so, for the most part, I think with a private practice, you are going to be safer if you are meeting with private clients who have a relationship with people you already know. That's still the bulk of my practice today. Although when I moved to New York City, when I moved from New York City to Washington, D.C., I did have a website by that point that was pretty robust because I used it to create and market offerings to teachers. So and there's a little space there for students to get more information about how to work with me either privately or in my group classes. So because of that website and the focus of my work with teachers on private lessons, if you Google, private yoga lesson Washington, D.C., my website comes up pretty high. So I did start getting more and more inquiries about private lessons from my website, from a Google search, from people that I had no other experience with. So again, I would just say to everybody curious about that, it's still better if most of your clients come from your acupuncturist recommending you and students in your group classes and friends and neighbors. I think that makes sense. That's the slow but best and most organic way to build a private practice, and it is, I think, a little bit safer. But because people started reaching out to me through my website and I needed to build a practice quickly, I definitely entertained those inquiries and I developed a screening process, both for men and for women. It wasn't about gender. It was just about them being a stranger before I felt comfortable going to their home or now seeing clients in my home, which is the bulk of what I do. So it's going to sound simple, but the main thing that I do when people reach out asking for information about private lessons is I respond and send them a long list of questions back in return. Now, this isn't a form they fill out on my website. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but for me, I feel like I get more useful information and start building a relationship with a student if the question and answer and inquiry and screening process happens through personal emails rather than having them fill out a form that I already created that's on my website. Another piece of this is I don't put my prices on my website, and that's on purpose. I do that not because I'm trying to keep my prices a secret, but I want people, if they're interested in working with me, to reach out to me to find out how much private lessons cost, which is sometimes the first thing people do. People, for good reason, are price shopping. And so if they're looking online and they see a price that seems maybe higher than somebody else's price, they may not even entertain working with me. But if they have already reached out and we've started to establish a relationship, it's a little bit easier to help people understand why my price is the way it is. So this is what happens. People will send me an email. Sometimes it's a really nice long email. Hi, I'm reading through your website. It seems like you might really be able to help me. Here's what's going on with me. Please let me know how you like to work together and how much your lessons are. And it's like a very full-bodied email. That's probably 1 in 4. And then 3 out of 4 emails that I get just say, how much do private lessons cost? In both cases, I respond essentially the same way. Now, if somebody's emailed me with a ton of information about themselves, then we're kind of like in the second step where I get to respond and ask questions. But if someone's just written me and said, how much do private lessons cost? Then I respond by saying, thanks so much for reaching out. And I, in a kind of more conversational way, again, not an official form that they have to fill out, but in a personal email, I say, why are you looking for a private yoga teacher right now? Like, what's going on in your body or your life that made you reach out for this kind of support at this time? So that's one question. I ask them if they've done yoga before, what their experience was like. Did they like it or did they not like it? What specifically is going on with their body right now? Any injuries, any limitations? Are there any old injuries or limitations that from the past that I might need to know about? I ask them about their goals in general, and then ask them some questions about their schedule and their timing. But most of the questions that I ask are about what's going on with them, why they're looking for a private teacher, what they feel like they might be able to gain from a private yoga teacher and a yoga practice. And it's like sometimes up to 10 questions. And then I tell them a little bit about myself. This is my background. This is what I really like to work on with private clients. I can't wait to hear from you. Looking forward to connecting. So I would say let's say I get 4 emails a month. One is like inquiry emails about private lessons. One is like a really full-bodied email with lots of information, very friendly. And 3 just want to know how much I cost. When I respond to those 3 people with a long list of questions, I would say 1 of the 3 responds back and 2 don't respond at all. And that's completely fine. But I think that part of the way I screen people out is if they're not really interested in a yoga practice, but they're just, weird people on the internet, then my long list of questions throws them off. And if they're not just weird people, but they are actually interested in establishing a yoga practice and are interested in having me as a private teacher, then they respond in kind to my questions. They answer all of them very thoroughly. When people do that, I get a little bit of a sense of who they are, what they need, how I might be able to help them. And I feel assured that they're not like a serial killer who's just looking for like a new victim. I don't know. So I have several email back and forth. Partly, again, that's to help me get a sense of what's going on with them and how I can best help them. And also, again, that's where a conversation about money comes in a little bit more easily, because it's so much better to, rather than if they sent me an email that says, how much are private yoga lessons? And I wrote back $110. That's not like selling them, for lack of a better word. But if they write, how much is a private yoga lesson? And I send them a long list of questions about what's going on with them and their body and what they need, and they respond, then I get to say, I had a client that worked with a very, very similar issue, and we did X and Y and Z, and she saw so much improvement and it was so fun. Or like, I've actually had that injury, so I can, I totally resonate, and I've already got a bunch of ideas of things that I think might be able to help you. So as I'm sharing that information about things that I think I might like to do with them and things that might help them, 75-minute sessions at my home are $110. It comes through a lot easier, I think, and it's a lot more easy for people to swallow. They can start to see the value in the price already when I'm able to talk about my experience or my training or the success I've had with other clients with the same issue. So that's my simple screening process. I send a very friendly, very personal, long list of questions. And if people respond appropriately, then I feel pretty safe moving forward with them. Now, something that I do is I'll have several email exchanges back and forth, and then usually I'll schedule a phone call. There's more information that you can get from people sometimes over the phone and when you can hear their voice. That's a nice way to talk about schedule, so there's not so much back and forth. And once I've had several emails back and forth and a phone call, then I usually feel totally comfortable meeting this person at my house or even at their house. It doesn't need to be a public space, although some teachers like to do that, and I completely understand and support and respect that. I haven't found that to be necessary. But when I have new people coming here, I have usually worked it out so that my fiance could be home at the same time. Hasn't always been the case, and it's always been fine. So I think when you're thinking about safety, you have to trust your gut. If something feels off, if something feels weird, if a student hasn't been responsive via email or phone in a friendly, communicative way, I would probably not move forward in seeing them, certainly in a private space. Maybe that would be a person that I would rent a yoga studio space for. But I have really not felt the need and really haven't run into the situation where somebody reached out to me via the internet for a private lesson. I had a little bit of communication with them, but not a lot, and then met with them in person. I just haven't done that. I have really only worked with the people online who were very friendly and communicative and engaged in the emails. There are plenty of those people. If they're really looking for a private teacher, if they really see some benefit in a yoga practice, I think that they will respond to your questions if they're good questions and you ask them in a friendly way. So that's my best advice for screening new students. And then the bonus of that is you get to really get a sense of who they are and what they want to work on. So the first session you teach with them can be really meaningful for them. And it's easier to sell people on the expense of a private lesson when you've been able to outline and differentiate the benefits and the outcomes as opposed to a group class. So that's my answer to the how do you screen students who find you online. Of course, let me know what other questions come up, and I'll be happy to answer in the comment section below. Bye for now.